Like most human beings, I'm a fan of The Simpsons. In its prime, The Simpsons was maybe the greatest show on television. In fact, I have the maybe unpopular opinion that it's still pretty good, at least as far as network TV goes. The Simpsons is largely satirical, providing commentary on many common American tropes, such as hypocritical evangelical Christianity, comically violent cartoons and action movies, or the incompetent yet never accountable police force. Another common American trope is the foreign, often Asian convenience store owner. This is lampooned in The Simpsons in the form of the character Apu Nahasapimapetalan. The character Apu is definitely used in interesting and smart ways on the show, often to criticize Western ignorance and xenophobia.
All right, here's your last question. What was the cause of the Civil War?
Actually, there were numerous causes. Aside from the obvious schism between abolitionists and anti-abolitionists, economic factors, both domestic and international, played a significant...
Yeah, just say slavery.
But the show has long been under fire for what I think we can all agree at this point is a pretty insensitive, stereotypical portrayal of South Asian people and to some extent non-white immigrants in general. Everything from his exaggerated accent to his characterization as a cheap and unscrupulous business owner. And like I said, I love The Simpsons. But what's that one thing that one lady used to say at the beginning of all her videos, but everyone conveniently ignored it? Oh yeah, remember that it's both possible and even necessary to simultaneously enjoy media while also being critical of its more pernicious aspects. Hi, I'm T1J.
Follow me.
So even though I know there's probably going to be a bunch of comments about it, this video is not supposed to be a discussion specifically about the problem with Apu. If you'd like to see one of those, I suggest watching The Problem with Apu, which is a documentary by comedian Hari Kondabolu. I honestly thought it was gonna just be an hour of people complaining about racism, but it's actually pretty thoughtful and nuanced, so I think you should watch it. You should probably watch it before watching this video, to be honest. But if you can't or don't want to, I'd like you to at least watch this clip of Kondabolu's Daily Show interview just to get an idea of the arguments he makes in the film. What I would like to talk about is The Simpsons' recent response to the Apu controversy. Earlier this month, Fox aired the 15th episode of the 29th season of The Simpsons entitled No Good Read Goes Unpunished. In it, Marge purchases an old book that she grew up reading and wants Lisa to enjoy it in the same way that she did. She soon realizes, however, that the book is pretty offensive by today's standards. The show eventually takes this opportunity to briefly compare this to its own problematic character.
Well, what am I supposed to do?
It's hard to say. Something that started decades ago and was applauded and inoffensive is now politically incorrect. What can you do?
Some things will be dealt with at a later date.
If at all.
This response was widely hated by viewers, as if the writers of the show just kind of shrugged it off and said, yeah, but what are you gonna do? But the line that really got to me was this one. Something that started decades ago was applauded and inoffensive, but is now politically incorrect. What can you do? Now, of course, this is ridiculous, and not in the good Simpsons way either. This is an idea that I've been seeing a whole lot lately, that somehow the world all of a sudden got super sensitive. Things that apparently used to be cool to do and say are no longer okay. And I used to sort of buy into this myself. I even made several videos about it, because I do think that people sometimes overreact or get offended over silly things. But that's always been true. It didn't just randomly start happening in 2010. They used to literally arrest comedians who were too vulgar. But yeah, somehow progressive millennials are the greatest threat to freedom of speech. Now, it's true that the sensibilities of a society can evolve over time. But what is considered socially acceptable is usually dictated and enforced by dominant groups. The straight white male perspective has always been treated as the default perspective in America. And just because something is socially acceptable to dominant groups doesn't mean that thing is inoffensive or acceptable to other people. You see, here's the thing. Apu was always a shitty, offensive caricature of South Asians and their culture. Yeah, Lisa, some people applauded it, but it was never inoffensive. People other than white folks exist, you know. The problem is, those people tend to have a marginalized voice in American society today, much less in 1990 when the character Apu first appeared on television. People have been complaining about Apu for years, but it's hard to make people listen to you when you have less power and influence. But things are getting better. The reason that the world seems to be getting more PC is because now people in historically oppressed groups have more of an opportunity to share their thoughts and experiences than they ever have. And eventually, mainstream white society just has no choice but to hear them. A movie like The Problem with Apu just simply wouldn't have been made in 1990. Hari would have been laughed out of the room after giving his pitch. A lot of people were especially upset that this line was delivered by Lisa specifically, because Lisa is often portrayed as the philosophical voice of reason on the show, especially with regard to politics and social justice. What people sometimes forget, though, is that in true Simpsons fashion, Lisa is also often used as a device to satirize self-righteous attention seekers who wish to assert moral authority over everybody else.
Oh my god! I'm losing my perspicacity!
So, Lisa's not some infinitely wise or morally infallible character, even within the show's universe. It could be argued that Lisa's main motivation on the show is an unending search for meaning and truth. And just because she thinks she's found something doesn't mean she actually has. Personally, and I don't think the writers intended this at all, but I think Lisa saying this line was ironically perfect. Because it really exemplifies how even the most well-meaning and supposedly informed white people can and do still have a limited perspective on racial issues. The Simpsons has evolved to be an undoubtedly progressive show. There are multiple anti-homophobia episodes. They did this great satirical episode where the residents of Springfield build a wall to keep illegal immigrants out. Pretty spot on. Wait, that was in 2009? How do they keep doing that?
Trump.
At the end of the day, though, the main purpose of the show is to make us laugh. And I've always theorized that if comedians are given a choice between doing something that's right and doing something that's funny, they will almost always choose the latter. And although we should all remember that, I honestly think that's fine. It's not my intention to bottleneck any creator's artistic vision as long as they are prepared to deal with the reaction. But I am becoming more and more convinced that this is a false dilemma. When Lisa asks, "What can you do?" this just comes off as a stubborn and lazy unwillingness to take on the challenge of making a great show without alienating huge parts of your audience. Now, most people agree that The Simpsons is far past its prime, but they still make very thoughtful and smart episodes from time to time, which leads me to believe that they still give a shit about trying to make a good show. So if you give a shit, there are many answers to the question, what can you do? The comedian Patton Oswalt publicly changed his opinion on rape jokes after 25 years in the business. The film Black Panther changed a supervillain from the comics who was mostly a racist caricature literally called Man-Ape into a sympathetic, complex character who was like the best part of the whole movie. Well, except Shuri the God. And these changes didn't ruin anybody's career or make anybody stop watching. In fact, I'd argue that addressing these challenges in a thoughtful way not only results in a less offensive product, but just a better product overall. So, Simpsons crew, if you give a shit, you probably don't have to choose between something that's right and something that's entertaining. If you don't give a shit, then carry on, I guess. But it looks like you do. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys come up with. That's just me though. What do you think? Thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. If you want to support me, consider becoming a patron on Patreon. That would be awesome. I have merch, I have wristbands, I have t-shirts. There's a bunch of links in the description. It would be awesome if you checked it out. Bye.